The concentration camp was behind the lighthouse. It was the first concentration camp in human history.
This was the biggest concentration camp, the one of Windhoek. When they were building this museum here, when they were digging the foundation to build, they saw human remains, bones. These things are constructed on mass graves within a concentration camp. This place, this building here, is now used as a museum. That is where they are keeping the human remains, the skulls that we have been bringing from Germany.
Hallo, guten Morgen oder guten Tag. Lassen Sie das jetzt hier? Nee, das finde ich ein bisschen unangenehm. Wir zeichnen heute diese Ereignisse jetzt auch offiziell als das, was sie gewesen sind, ein Völkermord. Wir bekennen uns damit auch zu unserer historischen Verantwortung. Und im Lichte dieser historischen und auch moralischen Verantwortung Deutschlands werden wir Namibier und die Nachkommen der Opfer um Vergebung bitten. Und als Geste der Anerkennung des unermesslichen Leids, das den Opfern zugefügt wurde, wollen wir Namibier und die Nachkommen der Opfer mit einem substanziellen Programm in Höhe von 1,1 Milliarden Euro unterstützen. Und dabei wird es ganz besonders um Wiederaufbau und Entwicklung gehen. Ja, ich bin außerordentlich froh und auch sehr dankbar, dass es jetzt endlich gelungen ist, mit Namibia eine Einigung über einen gemeinsamen Umgang mit einem der dunkelsten Kapitel unserer gemeinsamen Geschichte zu erzielen.
They are refusing to pay us. What they are giving us is not reparation payment as defined in terms of the rules of international law. They are just giving a pittance that they call they also call it development fund for projects like schools and roads, bridges and blah, 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 blah. They cannot qualify the definition of reparation. Reparation is punishment payment for the crime that you have committed. It's not a gift.
They're talking about infrastructure development. Infrastructure development is the responsibility of the Namibian state. We reject it because, one, the German government does not acknowledge genocide. It says genocide from today's perspective. That is not acknowledgement. Germany must fully acknowledge genocide. Germany must give a sincere apology, and Germany must pay reparations. It must compensate. They must restitute.
In that package and the agreement, there's no way the reparation is not mentioned. The descendants of the victims, felt a little bit insulted. And then, of course, the amount. There is already a precedent that the money that were paid to the Jews, the victims of the Holocaust, when you compare to that amount that the German offered, is completely way different in terms of the substance of that package. The second aspect is that the process of negotiation between the two governments did not include the victims group, the descendant of the victims group. As a result, that what we have seen, that when the agreement was reached, it generated more divisions and more anger and more questions and all those kind of things.
They have been very tricky in terms of the language used. They never even once use the word reparation in the joint declaration, and that is quite deliberate. I think it will open a Pandora's box. And you would also realize that a good number of countries in the West have not been supportive of what has been happening here. They also have got bones in their own closet. So the moment they, for example, support the Herero Nama case against the Germans, the next thing it will be them who would then also have to pay.
Kayam si radius ora ale ngana ngau mama. Radius ora ki ngana ngau. Babe ki ngai ama besna. Tinsen da jera. Kabe nedra mi se dai.
They would claim you owe money and then you lose your land and that killing people, raping our people, all of these things.
Omukandu omuhero wanga asombo abeaha okushebina byahero byatalera nganda.
The herd of cattle that they've confiscated or stolen from the Hereros, these herds were growing. They started fencing off larger hectares of land, to make their own private farms.
This is Ovitoto. Where the genocide was started in 1904 on 12 January. When the war started in Okahanja, through this gentleman's place, Okamboro, where he'd been born, staying. From there, started through up in Okanjira.
There's no way you could have been outside, not in those camps. If you were not in those camps, the only other option was that you were in Botswana. You see, Germany, they also committed another crime, the Holocaust. The Shoah, as the Jews would call it, And all of these things, it's a continuation of what was began here. When they came out of the concentration camps, they were awakened to a new reality of their lands, their homes, now being private land, suddenly acres of land that is now occupied by white people. Reflecting from today's perspective, these people did this because of land. They realized there's a lot of land, there are cattle, finding the new living space for the German Aryan nation. Where we live today is not where our people historically were. It's a piece of land that is reserved for black people. This is where we live. The genocide to us is not a history, but is present-day reality. The land we lost has never been returned.
People, once they came out of the concentration camps, were put into native reserves to make space, to make Lebensraum for German settlers whose descendants are still living on that same land. And the people who were dispossessed continue to live in the native reserves in which the Germans put them and which were, further strengthened and institutionalized by the apartheid. Only in 2006 that the Namibian parliament unanimously passed a resolution in which they decided that they now need to approach the German government for an acknowledgement, for an apology, and for reparations. From 2006 until about 2015, the German government resisted. They resisted, but it was due to the pressure that was put by the Nama and Ovaherero people through their leaders that Germany finally said, okay, let's talk about it.
It is important that we enter into conversation about the lands issue to make sure that we come up with workable solutions for everybody that is involved. You remember that the Germans that are living here, they have been living here for centuries and centuries. There's no way you can say that you should not be given land, they should give land back away. I think the German government thinks that the chapter is closed. They have agreed on the development package that they are going to give. They have apologized and that they acknowledge that genocide took, and they think that the chapter is closed. So you can see that it is pushing divisions deeper and deeper and creating new problems. What the agreement did, it further put them away apart from each other.
The negotiation we are talking about, but it has not yet started as far as the Hereros and the Namas. We say you committed genocide. Let's sit down and talk so that we can tell you how you have damaged us and how much we have to calculate in terms of our losses.
Eto shomuho kombat butfat ete muno mimehindi muno wandoishi. Ndio ndimba kamburo mahiwa banene vetu. Pothiete katuna ngore nao. Tumuna kokushabi obinambia shitiro banene bao. Pothianga tuhangane tulilo mundu umwe. Pothianga tufutathane gatubatilathane okudambo kienda ku mulungu. Okuhepa. Of course we know reasons why Germany doesn't want to pay. Germany is supported by many of the European cousins who are equally guilty of similar crimes across the world. We know that we are pioneers. Once our case is successful or is through, it sets a precedence where other genocided communities across the world would also come forth and place their demands to recognize that our struggle is part of a global, of a bigger picture and a bigger struggle the world around.
It is a classic case study in which two small, tiny communities on the southern tip of Africa are taking on a mighty, sort of Western power. It is a case that people are following because it would set a precedent for how other African countries, would learn from this experience to also deal with their former colonial masters like France and like Belgium and so on.
I'm sure a lot of countries in the West or wherever, countries that were at one point imperial powers, they are watching this case with keen interest. Like, whatever happens would affect us. Because other countries are also gonna, put in a claim to say, no, what also you guys did here was wrong and you have to pay us.